I'm not creative. I'm not. If you looked at the definition of creativity by what people would consider to be a standard, I don't know how to draw. I cannot play a musical instrument. I can't paint. If you ask me to design a vase, there's no way it's going to happen. And yet, in my career, in marketing and in turnarounds, I have done some very creative things, right? And so about 4 years ago, I was asked to teach a creativity course at San Diego State. I had taught several marketing courses. I had taught an entrepreneurship course, fundamentals, and the chair of the department said, Bernie, we'd like you to teach a creativity innovation course. And I was like, how do you do that? I was dead serious. I figured in my life, and I've built billion-dollar company, and I've helped other companies grow to be billions of brands. Like I did the first 3 years of Amazon. I did the 2 years at Yahoo. I actually put Travelocity together. So these, to me, were solving problems. I didn't look at it as creativity, right? So when someone says, how can you teach someone to be a little more creative and innovative on purpose? I had no clue. So I took an entire year, and for a year, I researched how creativity and innovation was being taught around the world, including inside Disney. When you rise to a director level at Disney, you are asked to participate in a 12-week course in innovation and creativity. It's mandatory. There's no option. And it's held in Florida, and I located the director of the program. And she shared her syllabus with me, just like I got about 20 professors from around the world to share their syllabus with me so that I could understand, how are you teaching it? What are you asking the students to do? What books are you using? And after a year of this distillation, I was able to create a course, right? And now I've been teaching it for 4 years, so I can tell you with no hesitation, I can teach someone to be creative on purpose, right? Which is fascinating, because I didn't know if it was possible. So today, I teach in the program, and I'm a director at the center. I probably have helped start more than 100 small companies out of the center, probably the largest one being about 25 million. Who are you? I don't know about you, but I follow trends maniacally, and maybe it's my past. Maybe it's because people hired me or my agency as a marketing company to understand where things were going. So when I would sit down with American Express, and they would say, where's credit cards going? Where is life insurance going? You know, I would have to understand that because they were hiring us to solve that problem, right? So my mode became, you better look forward and you better understand and you better follow trends so you can see where they come across, right? Networks, you know, do you have non-homogeneous networks? I mean, do you have people in your network that will give you an opposing point of view or maybe a more creative point of view on purpose? Or do you choose to build your network around people that think like you, look like you, and walk like you? It's a problem. It's a problem. If you don't have a dishomogeneous network, you're not going to be as creative and you're not going to be as opportunistic as you can be. Curiosity. You know, do you try new things, a new way to work, investigate a food or a store? Mindset. How many of you in the room, whether you're willing to publicly admit it, believe that you are fixed with certain skills and assets and that's what you have? And that you really cannot acquire more? You're just not good at stats. You're just not good at finance. Your parents told you weren't good at X or Y. Your cousins, whoever, a teacher. And you stay there, right? That's a big problem, you know? We teach students on the San Diego State campus to have a growth mindset, meaning you can acquire what you want, right? And then creativity. This is the hardest one. Do you believe you're creative? However we define it. I don't know about you, but I had 5 siblings. I glued my sister's hands together when I was 5, she was 2, because I wanted to see if it would stick. What's fascinating is, as humans, we're inherently born to be creative. We are. But somehow through time, through, you know, kind of the management of both society and parents for all the good intentions, you need to study this to go to that school. You can't have free time after school. You need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. I don't know how many of you remember the movie Sandlot, right? That was my neighborhood. That was my life. I ran with 4 guys like that, and we got up every day, and we didn't know what the hell we were going to do. And it was awesome, right? I look at how we're micromanaging our millennials today, and I have children, right? And we have them in every AP class. We're telling them in kindergarten, or actually in pre-K, if not preschool, the type of preschool they have to go into, to get into pre-K they have to get into elementary school they have to get into the right high school, to get into the right college. And we are drumming the creativity right out of them, okay? Why focus on creativity at all? Every year IBM does a survey of 1,500 top executives in probably the Fortune 1,500, so to speak. And this year, I was disappointed with this slide. What do you see on this slide that would disappoint you? Integrity was number 2. I couldn't believe it. Integrity's been number 1 forever. This year, creativity for the first time was number 1. And when they questioned the CEOs, why is creativity number 1? The CEOs were like, we're moving too fast. Markets are being disrupted too quickly. The flexibility that we require today is lights out. So when we're recruiting fresh employees, regardless of degree, we try to figure out if they can solve problems and if they can be adjustable, right? And if they can't, we pass because we have no room for people that are one-dimensional anymore. I find that fascinating. This is kind of a framework on creativity, right? If you were at a company level, you have to hire employees or people that have a growth mindset. Anybody that believes they're limited, don't hire them or bring them into your company or organization. Habitat is important. I define habitat as leadership and culture, right? Leadership sets the tone with the mission, and they define the culture by defining what is allowed in the culture and what isn't allowed. I mean, John Wilson, who's an SDSU alum, helped create a company called Stance. It's a sock company. They're heading for $1 billion. They just went over $200 million in the first 5 years. The 5 co-founders spent 4 months meeting before they had office space on defining the culture they wanted before they hired the first employee. And the culture they wanted was defined by freedom equals accountability. So that's why they don't have days off. They don't have sick days. Do what you want. You have freedom. We're hiring you. You're smart. But be accountable. Company has exploded. An employee cannot come into the company in the final interview, they have 5 interviews, until a co-founder interviews that employee only for culture. They've already been vetted for their skill and experience. One of the 5 co-founders, and they just went over 300, maybe 400 employees, cannot be hired unless a co-founder interviews them for culture. And they do that with interns as well, because they believe their interns are their future employees. Environment matters. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm currently teaching a group of students from all over Mexico in a 3-week entrepreneurship boot camp. That's an effort between the largest bank in Mexico and a group out of Silicon Valley. They want to economize their way out of the issues that Mexico has, and they want more startups, right? The university showed me a classroom they wanted me to teach the class in, right? And I went and looked at the classroom, and it's honestly a POS. In terms of where it was. It was in the center of a building. It had no windows. It had old furniture. And I went to the administration, the person who's coordinating this, and I said, that room's not acceptable. She's like, what do you mean it's not acceptable? It's a classroom. Like, that classroom is used during the semester. I go, I'm teaching an entrepreneurship and creativity class. I'm telling you right now that room's not acceptable. She's like, what are you looking for? I go, how about windows to start? How about modern furniture? And we went back, and now I have them in an environment where I can lift them, right? If you came into our center, you'd see one entire wall is just painted cinnamon red. Why? Why? Why not university beige? Because it sends a message when someone walks in, something happens here, right? So color and environment is critical. If you think the companies in Silicon Valley are putting slides in their building, cafes, dry cleaners, and really interesting workspaces because it's a trend or a fad, it's not. They understand that if you put someone in an environment that says, we expect you to perform, we expect you to be out of bounds, then we have to put you in an out of bounds environment. And you kind of become wed to that mission in your mindset, right? Think about the people at Pixar. Do you think they want to make a shitty movie? If you've seen some of the spaces, and I'll show you in a second at Pixar, it's amazing. The growth in the fixed mindset, growth, intelligence can always be learned, skills can be learned, and there's creativity in every single human. In a fixed mindset, your intelligence is fixed at birth, your innate skills are fixed, and you know what? You're probably not creative, right? Leadership, throughout the company, right? I can't tell you how many leaders I meet of companies, and I go, what's your mission? And they start to recite their mission statement. I go, no. I don't want to know what your mission statement is. I read that on your website, and that If that's your mission, then we have a problem, or you have a problem. What absolutely is the mission of your organization? And I go, and if I walked up to any employee randomly in your company, could they recite the mission to me? And invariably the answer is no, they couldn't. They might get close, but they can't. Well, the problem is that people want to work in a place that has a mission they believe in. How many people do you know or do you meet where they're working where they are now and they'll tell you, it's not the place for me? Why don't you quit? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? They won't. They will change at some point, especially millennials, because they want to feel like they're on a mission. If they feel like they're just, I don't care if they're making $60,000, $80,000 a year. If they feel like they're just grinding somewhere and there's no real mission, they're out. They're out. So this idea of having the defined goals, creating and nurturing the culture, giving, the company and every employee, every new hire, every intern, a sense of purpose and mission. And then you distribute the leadership, right? You got to have alignment between the goals and that allow anyone to lead. I ran into someone the other day when I explained to him the internship process at Patagonia, right, which is up in Ventura. 8 rounds of interviews for an intern. But then you look at the employees' LinkedIn, 70% of the people that work at Patagonia were interns. So when they vet people so hard, even interns, they treat them like future employees because they're going to hire them. If they're successful, they're going to hire them, right? And that allows anyone to lead. I know interns that are in meetings with vice presidents and directors at these kind of cultures where they're not treated like an intern. They're treated like, oh, we expect you to go get that research and then report back to us. Yeah, I know we're vice presidents, directors, but this is why we hired you, right? That's a fascinating culture. But if you have high creativity but low pressure, it's a journey. We'll get there when we get there. If you have low creativity and low pressure, it's cruise control. We don't really need to push too hard. The worst part is when you put high pressure on people, but you've got a low creativity group. Now you're just grinding them into nothing because they don't know how to solve the problem. They don't feel empowered. So now they're in a grind. They're just being ground. So honestly, you might say it's counterintuitive to put employees in a mission where there's some degree, a fair degree of pressure with a good degree of creativity in how you chose those people for that mission, and they will have the likelihood of probably being, very, very successful because they will feel as a team they're on a mission, right? Culture, it either happens or either you make it happen as a leader or it happens without you. So if you have the kind of culture that says, I come and go when I want, no one beneath me talks out of rank, everybody sits in order at a conference room table, the same people open up the meeting every time, you don't have to say anything. Everyone understands. Everyone understands. You go to that kind of meeting and those people are there, don't say anything. Because if you say something wrong, it's career limiting. That's the culture you've created, right? Good or bad. So you can decide what kind of culture you want to create on purpose, right? Craft the values, celebrate team wins, no politics. It's a tough one. I learned this the hard way when I found my future partners and we ended up creating a $1 billion company with 10,000 employees. And then we did have freedom and accountability. We hired people and said, we're going to pay you really well. We're going to give you this kind of freedom to do what you have to do. If you make the same mistake twice, we're going to fire you. Just know that now. If you make a mistake in the pursuit of doing something right, we're going to pick you up. We're going to pick you up. Don't make the same mistake twice. You're out. Okay? This is an office at Pixar. Now, you don't have to go to this kind of an outrageous state. But you do have to look at the environment you walk in and say, what can we do to make it a little more creative? And this is a tough one. Do you have trust up and down the organization? You know what's crazy about Pixar? You can be the lowest level person or an intern, and any human working at Pixar has the right to walk into a dailies meeting. So every day at the end of the day, everything that's been shot or animated that day is being reviewed in a daily session at 4 p.m. every day. Anyone, whether they're on that project or not, can walk into that room and ask a question or make a comment. That's insane. Can you imagine if you're like Lasseter and you're directing cars and some intern's there for the summer from wherever and they go, why is that car smiling? And you're like John Lasseter, like you're a god. And they don't do that. They go, well, what do you mean? Well, when the car smiles like that and then this other thing happens, it sends that kind of message. And the director goes, wow, I didn't even see that. Do you know what kind of environment you have to be able to have that kind of trust where anyone can walk in and make a comment about something like that? It's awesome if you can pull it off. People are equal. It's hard to do, but it's a cultural thing and it's a leadership thing. If you behave that way, then people will feel like they can lean in. And the more they lean in, the more creative they're going to be because they're going to want to solve problems. If you don't give them the feeling they can lean in, guess what people do when problems arise? They step back because they're like, oh, there's a problem. I'm going to step back because I don't want the blowback from this problem. Instead of, we need to solve that problem, right? That's what happens. You obviously have to offer a learning environment. You know, we used to say, we have $2,000 to send you to any training you want to go to during the year. Use it or not, we don't care. But we have it, right? And then creates interaction. I mean, one of the reasons that Steve Jobs built a new campus for Pixar is because when he toured what was Lucasfilm Studios, when he bought it from Lucas, he saw that everybody was in a separate building. The engineers were in a building, the animators were in a building, the marketing people were in a building. And so when he built Pixar, he built it as a hub, not too dissimilar from what the new Apple campus looks like today, where there was only one common cafeteria, everybody was in the same building, sharing, so that he wanted to purposely create interactions, people running into each other on purpose. He even demanded all the restrooms be in the center of the building, but it was such a big building, they were like, you know, that's not going to work. You know, so they ended up putting some restrooms in the center, but then some restrooms elsewhere. But he was that maniacal about how can I get engineers running into salespeople, running into animators, because guess what? Today they just hang out in their own silos. And if you have a siloed organization, mix it up. Put the sales team on the engineering floor. Get them closer to the product and get the engineers closer to the sale, right? You should not be segmenting your departments. It's going to create some chaos. It's going to create a little bit of calamity. But you know what else it will create? Probably better products. There will be some creativity that starts to spark because more people will know what the mission is based on all this feedback being changed around, right? Don't ever brainstorm in a meeting without using tools, right, or defining the problem. In our class, when I teach creativity, students spend 10 minutes just to define the problem, the teams of 5. I don't let them go forward until they identify the problem. I can't tell you how many brainstorming sessions I've been in my career where I didn't even know what the real serious problem was. I didn't know if it was a symptom or if this was the real problem. But people just seemed to move on depending on who had the power and who was organizing the meeting. This is the framework process I use in my class to solve very simple problems and very complicated problems. Right? 10 minutes to define the problem, 10 minutes of brainstorming, 10 minutes of refinement of the best ideas, and 10 minutes, I don't allow them to present the solution verbally, they have to draw it. Because when you draw things, your analytic side of your brain quiets and your creative side of your brain engages when you start drawing. And when other people see what you're drawing, they can build on that drawing, right? So here's a couple of creativity tools as I get toward the end of my presentation. I do not allow teams to brainstorm without using a tool because it's just a free-for-all. It's alpha male, alpha female, whatever, right? It's a mess. So agree on the problem, then use one of these tools. Blue Ocean Strategy, written by a couple of people out of Harvard, great book, but it's a simple framework. As you look at the problem, you say, which factors can you eliminate? Which factors can you reduce? What should we raise the bar on? And what should we create that's totally new, right? I have teams that I put through boot camps to create companies out of this. Because as soon as you start analyzing, well, let me analyze Blockbuster. What can we eliminate? The stores. Ultimately, you'd create Netflix because you'd work your way backwards just by dissecting this simple framework against what exists. It's not even about what's new. You can get there by using this type of framework and dissect something on purpose that exists. Scamper is awesome. You substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to use, eliminate, or reverse it. So I'll walk into class, and the simplest exercise I give them on the first day is I put a pen on the table and I say, I need a new pen. And they are like clueless. Like, how do we design a new pen? Then I show them this. Now they have a roadmap. Oh, let's tear the pen apart. You know, what can we substitute? What can we combine? And they come up with crazy-ass pens, right? And I do that all the way to defining what Barnes & Noble should be doing today in a failing business model. So the challenges as we go through the semester get really, really hard. Like CEOs haven't solved these problems. And these kids are like, 40-minute framework, we'll come up with something. You know, it's awesome to watch. I mean, you'd almost want to tape it and show it to the CEOs of some of the companies we're actually using as examples to say, you're a $6 billion organization. These kids are getting dangerously close in 40 minutes. How the hell are you not getting close at all? Mind map. Mind map's kind of cool because you put the problem in the center and then you draw out the key branches that are related to the problem, and then you just do pros and cons of the problem. So this happened to be absenteeism as a company. So they said, well, is health the problem? Well, what constitutes health? Well, you know, sleep, stress, food, you know, exercise. And they said, well, what are the pros of this? What are the cons? And as you do the pros and the cons, then you say, what could we add to a pro? How do we completely negate a con? You know, people aren't eating healthy. Oh, what if we replaced all of our vending machines with only healthy food, right? What if we got rid of soda? What if we did a yoga class? What if we did this? What if we did that, right? That's how you get there through these branches. In an observation lab, I make the students do this as well. They go out in the community. I give them problems to solve. I've had them at the airport. I've had them at Ballast. I've had them all over the city. You know, I give them different assignments, and they literally go in with no idea what they're looking for, but they're to look. And they're to write down and take pictures of everything they observe, right? Companies who get it right, I don't think I need to tell you. And I'm not saying these companies are perfect, but they got a lot going on. And it's not an accident. There's massive opportunities. You have to have creative people in your company. You have to have problem solvers because things are moving too fast, right? Industries are being disrupted. You got trends going crazy. Baby boomers are not going to die. They got a lot of money. Well, they actually are going to die, but they don't want to die. The millennials are going to be the largest population in the United States by 2025. The largest population, 81 million, right? And worldwide, pretty consistent as a population. Apple is offering what next? Uber, Amazon, you know, Facebook. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. I don't care what business you're in today. It's going to get disrupted to some degree. To some degree. So the only way that you're going to be able to deal with a little bit of opportunity or disruption is to have the most problem-solving oriented creative type people that can think creatively. It's not about being a musician or being an artist. It's about learning how to solve problems and feeling confident that you can do that. Because those are the companies that are going to be flexible enough to pivot and survive. So, summary. You're all creative. So am I, even though I told you I wasn't. You have to provide a mission around your organization. Honestly, if you think you have a mission statement, walk around your company and ask your employees what they think the mission is. You'll find out real quick if they understand the mission or not. You have to operate and behave in the entire company and yourself with a growth mindset. I mean, I became an MBA student at the age of 51 because I wanted to teach at San Diego State. So that didn't stop me. I'm like nobody. I'm just somebody that wants things, right? So I never grew up understanding what a fixed or a growth mindset was. I figured I'm just an immigrant growing up in blue-collar Detroit. Like, if I want something out of life, I guess I got to go make it. But I definitely did not think I would achieve the success I have achieved. You know, and your goal should be the most creative company in your industry. I don't care if you make bricks. You should be the most creative brick company in the industry because you're the one that's going to drive the innovation that occurs in that industry, or someone else will. Thank you.